girls, welcome back to the Asterisk podcast where I'm your host, April Biondolillo. And on today's episode, we have my good friend Kristey, all the way from Fort Worth, Texas. If you watched a couple episodes back, she was on our Fort Worth panel, and not gonna lie, she was probably one of our favorites. She just was so real, so vulnerable, which is exactly what this podcast is all about. So if you don't know Kristey, a little bit about her is she is a proud Texas transplant from New York, is the director of student life at Bethesda Christian School in Fort Worth, Texas. She is passionate about leadership and faith, mentors young leaders, and fosters spiritual growth. With a heart for helping others discover their God-given potential, she thrives on honest conversations, yes she does, and delivering truth. Outside of work, Kristey enjoys leading worship, hiking with friends, and diving into captivating books. Well, Kristey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We're just about to have the most honest, real conversation. It's going to be good. It's like we talk on the phone. It's the same thing, you know?
Well, I know how to be.
Yes. So we're going to kind of go back into, like I said in the beginning, she was on our Fort Worth panel, and our tour this year for Cherish Conference has been not a cool girl, just embracing the labels that life, culture, even ourselves can put on our own individual self, and just instead of running from it, just saying, yeah, I'm not those things and this is who I am. And so we learned a lot about Kristey's individual stories. So we're going to go just a little bit deeper in this episode. So at conference, you spoke specifically about your relationship with labels such as I'm not a skinny girl, I'm not a married girl, I'm not a put together girl. And that kind of honesty is so powerful. And what have those labels meant to you, and how have you wrestled with or defined them or redefined them?
Well, I think
Like,
we
here we
label
go.
ourselves all throughout our lives, and I think that they change as our confidence changes. They change as, we're insecure or we're secure in ourselves in different seasons. And so there have been moments of my life where you look in the mirror and you're just like, this is not
Yeah.
this is not what I
Not it.
want for
Yeah.
myself. This is not it. Like, what do I need to do to change how I feel in my skin, how I view myself, how I speak to myself? And so, I still today, like, I have a hard time looking in the mirror sometimes
Yeah.
and being okay with what I look like, and try to remind myself, like, hey, you are doing your best.
Yeah.
You're working hard. You're trying to balance working, having a social life, working out, all these different things. And, there are days where it's still really easy to be like, you're not going to be the skinny girl. You're not going to be the put together girl, comparatively to other people.
Yeah.
So redefining those things is like a daily thing for me, where it's like, I may not be the skinny girl, but let's try to see what type of girl I am. Like, I am strong and confident most of the time. Like those types of things.
No, that's good. How do you stay in that place? Because it is so easy with culture today, just constantly surrounded by this is what beauty is, or this is the kind of girl you should strive to be. How do you stay in that centered, grounded place in the Lord of not allowing that to influence you? And obviously we wrestle with that on a day-to-day basis, but what practical, spiritual, however you want to answer it, what things have helped you to be like, man, this is who Kristey is?
I think it's more of it. Like I said, it's like a daily, moment by moment thing sometimes. And so I'm a declarative person. I know that our words have power. And so there are times, like, I have a list of affirmations that I read to myself, and I read them out loud.
Yeah, that's good.
Because sometimes I have to hear myself say it.
Yeah.
For it to get from here to here to here, and to firmly get it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll be throughout my work day where I'm just not, I'm just having one of those days where it's like, I'm not feeling myself.
Right.
Where I have to be like, no, this is the type of person God has created you to
Yeah.
be.
It's good.
Lean into it.
Right.
Lean into it. And if it's uncomfortable, that's okay. But yeah, it's a continual thing where it's
Yeah.
like, I wake up that morning and I'm like, ugh, nothing fits. Nothing
Ugh,
feels good on my
so horrible.
body. Or
Yeah.
like my hair is just not doing what it's supposed to, and you just feel off.
Yeah.
And it is a continual thing. And it's not just physical things, it's how you feel about who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just like, am I a good person?
Right.
I was like, do I have all these people fooled?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like an imposter. I mean, you've
Mm.
talked about this before
Yeah.
about imposter syndrome. And,
Yep.
it's that continual reminder of, no,
Absolutely.
this is who God has called me to be. And calling those things to mind
Yeah.
to be able to declare them over yourself. So,
No, so good. And it is. It's like it's easy to be confident about yourself and to like what you see when things are like driving the right way, you're waking up, your clothes fit well, you're like, wow, there's actually some wiggle room in these clothes, or my skin's clear, to then, just the being proud of the decisions you're making in life, feeling like you're excelling at work. Like when things are going good, it's really easy. The challenge becomes when it's not going, the way that you would desire. And it can be as simple as like, even for me this morning, like waking up, sometimes if I don't have anything like big or major happening in my life, I'm already like, meh, what
I'm
do I
a
want to do with the
loser.
day? Literally. And so then that can translate into making decisions of like, oh, I'm just going to sit and watch a show. And
Mhm.
then I'll be there all day and I'm like, whoa, I just like wasted a day. Like rest is important, but that's not what I was doing. And we have so many excuses for ourselves today to be like, oh, you deserved that rest. Like your body was just tired. It's like,
I deserve a sweet treat.
yeah, yeah. Like, let me go try those Kardashian cookies from Crumble because it's the yellow cake, y'all, that gets me. I'm just telling you. So I'm like, nothing's better than like a cheap store-bought yellow cake with chocolate frosting. But all that to say, yeah, it's just having like those honest moments. And I even think about, I think there's been like a reel or TikTok. This is probably so outdated, which just shows how like uncool and not trending I am. But for a while, there was a video and it was like kids going to their youth pastor and they were like, man, we want to, how do you like hear God's voice? And he's like, read your Bible. He's like, no, like, how do I hear God's voice out loud? He's like, read your Bible out loud. They're like, oh, it's so good. And it's so funny. But to your point of being declarative, like, yeah, like there's something that shifts in our minds and it may not happen right away, but just the consistency of training yourself of knowing what are good things to turn to when I'm having those crappy days or those crappy emotions, because our emotions are going to lead us in a lot of unhealthy habits if we don't take captive of them, and they will control us if we don't control them. So I think just knowing that you have that, affirmations, I mean, maybe that's something where people, put it on the screensaver of their phone or carry it around with them in their purse, like wherever it is, just
I
go
have
to
it
that immediately.
right by my mirror. It's like right there.
Yeah,
Because
that's
sometimes
good.
it's like you have to refocus. Because
Mm,
the mirror can be your worst friend, worst
I like
enemy.
that. That's good.
Yeah.
Man, I'm like, girls, make that challenge. Like, take some time this week and write your affirmation. It sounds so silly. Like, I think we've all heard that 1,000 times, but yet it really does work. And it's funny that the things that work, we don't go to. It's like we know how we should be fueling our bodies. We know what we should be looking at and we know what thoughts we should be thinking, but we don't do it because it's the things that are simple that somehow become hard just because the enemy's a liar. So
And
I
we think we're
think,
silly. Like, saying
yeah.
a statement out loud, like, I am beautiful. I
Mm,
am generous. I am worthy of love. Like
yeah.
they seem silly.
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, I live alone, so that it's a little bit more beneficial because I don't have someone lurking, being like,
My
"What?"
husband in the morning, like, what is going on with her?
Um,
I
so,
am
but
fearfully and wonderfully made, Andrew.
declaring scripture over yourself, but like we make it this thing where it's like I am being so ridiculous by doing this
Yeah.
out loud. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, this is good for my mental health. This is
Yeah.
good for my emotional stability. Like
Right.
sometimes you got to get over yourself. So
Mm, that's
feel
good. That's so real though. No, I think that's powerful just to like as you're getting ready, like, because I think it's the reality of, it's not if it's gonna go that way, it's gonna happen, like, you're gonna wake up and there's gonna be something, because, again, the enemy, like, doesn't want you to be successful in life in whatever realm that is, and so, just knowing that that's, like, the first thing that you do is reading these affirmations, and not just, like, oh, like, I don't know, like, simple truths, like, what is biblical truth? And, yeah, make it in your own, but learning scripture, quoting scripture over your life, I mean, it says it's sharper than a two-edged sword. It's the only thing that can combat the lies of the enemy. So if you just got in a habit of doing that, I wonder how it would change you and just help you to make better decisions throughout your day, where you're not going for the Kardashian crumble cookie, but you're going for something that's fueling. And then, like, there's so many wild benefits to it. Like, I know, just in, like, the health journey, fitness world, just invite the Lord into that too. And I think I know I forget to do that. I'm just, like, doing it on my own efforts. I'm like, it's not working. Oh, probably because I haven't invited the Lord into that space too, because he cares about my body more than I do. Like, he wants me to be full of energy. He wants me to do the things that he's called me to do. So why is that?
Like, why would we invite the Lord into helping me in this?
Yeah.
It's like, no, he cares about the little details about you. He
Yeah.
made them.
Yeah.
So
So
invite
good.
him into what you think is silly. Like,
Yeah.
he's got a sense of humor too.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because it's like, well, you may look silly, but if it changes you, then it's the other people that are gonna look silly because 'cause they're not doing what's helping you, you know? So good. Man, see, I told you, it's just like conversating. I'm like, this is my bestie. We're just chatting. Okay, so you've shared that you feel called to be a wife and a mother, and yet you're 34 and still waiting. I'm like, am I allowed to say the age? I just did.
Yeah.
Not even that 34 is old, but
I'm not assuming my age.
she's like, what is this? Yeah. What does it look like to hold on to that calling when the timeline doesn't look how you expected?
Yeah. So this is one of those questions that I like would have to sit with because it's like, yeah, it's, when I was in college, I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to meet a guy in college. We're going to fall in love. And then after we graduate, we're going to get married. We're going to get a
Yeah.
house, start having babies, whatever. And that didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm 34 and still single. And it's, you feel like nothing is on the horizon. So you could, like, I'm going to be honest, like, there are days where I get really down about it
Yeah.
and mad at the Lord and frustrated, but then I think about, okay, what could be the purpose
Mm,
behind this waiting,
yeah.
So many people will come at you with like, well, you probably have something that you're still working through, and
Ugh.
I hate that. Like,
Yeah.
when people try to cliche away why, because they just don't understand,
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't need to say anything.
I'm
That's
like,
okay.
appreciate that, but please never again.
Yeah, because then I'm like, okay, so you're telling me 18-year-olds that get married are fully good, and me over here as a 34-year-old, I'm still struggling. Like,
You're like,
come
do
on.
you know what I'm struggling with? Because I would love to know.
Yeah. So, but no, like, I'm reminded, like, we've talked about this, but like, my family situation is an interesting one, to
Yeah.
say the least. Um, but I look at my life and I'm like, okay, I've been kind of separated from that storyline of my family my whole life. I am the only one to go to college. It took, that's been a couple of people now that after me, but
Yeah.
only one to go to college. I am, the only one that's waiting.
Mm,
It's very normal in my small town. Like, you marry the first person that you fall in love with in high school, or you happen to get pregnant. Like, it's just
yeah.
normal for you to just quickly
Make
go
that
for it.
decision.
And
Yeah.
my whole life, this testimony I have is that I'm waiting,
Mm,
but I'm also obedient. Like, that's
yeah.
a word that I have carried for a long time, is like, I'm being obedient,
Yeah.
even when I don't understand what I'm being obedient for.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just waiting. But my waiting is gonna be a testimony shift for
Mm,
my family, you
yeah.
know? And so I can look at, the typical Christian timeline that we've created.
Right.
And to be honest, like, it's that timeline is no longer realistic. Because if you look at the church, you even look in just the world, like, people aren't getting married as quickly as they once were. And so now it's like, don't condemn that lifestyle choice.
Right.
Because it's not wrong, to decide that I'm going to wait a little while to get
Right.
married.
Right.
They've even done studies that after 34, your divorce rate is like 25% less.
Wow.
So I'm like, I'm going to embrace the positive parts of, yes, I know that, like, I didn't follow the typical timeline, and yes, I have moments of frustration about,
Right.
like, I really want to be a wife. Like, I do feel called to be a wife. Just recently did I feel the shift of wanting to be a mother. It's still not like that number one, I have
Yeah.
friends
Yeah.
that just feel called to be a mom, and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm like, how about being a wife first?
Yeah.
Because they're not even married. But I just recently had that shift in my heart of, like, I think I want to be a mom, and
Wow.
I'm 34. Like,
Yeah.
it took a minute.
Yeah.
But holding on to that promise and know, like, God wouldn't give me that to
Right.
punish me.
Right.
That's not a punishment. Waiting is not a punishment. I have to cling on to the promises that he's made me
Yeah.
and trust, like, he has a perfect plan, and I'm not willing to settle for anything less.
It's good.
So,
No, I think that's so important too. And something you hit on at panel that I know had an impact on so many women that were there was just the reminder of sometimes in church we're really good of just like we group up by like stages of life. And so you're like, man, like I want to hang out with my married friends. Like I don't want to be like because I'm not married or because I don't have kids, I'm not invited anymore. And just the reality of checking up on single people in your life too, because they go home alone, and it is a lonely reality, and you shared about how there's moments where people are complaining about the noise or the husbands or the kids or the mess and you're like, man, I desire that, and so I think it's just a good reminder just to remember that the idea of we're going to be able to walk with people in the same stage at the same time our entire life, it's an impossible thing. We can't really do church that way. Like we really need intergenerational, multicultural, every aspect because that's the body of Christ. And there's so much that we learn in that. Like I want to be around, I'm not a mom, I've been married 5 years. That's obviously a question that we get asked a lot. And I want to be invited to hang out with married couples that have kids, all of a sudden it's like all of our married friends now have kids and where do we not fit anymore? Like it's almost this idea of like, sorry, we can't be friends anymore. And you're like, what the heck? Why?
yeah. What are the
I can
pieces of
learn
life?
stuff,
Yeah.
like, so it's just it's a good reminder of everyone's in a different stage. Just remember to check in on your people. And there's things that you can, I mean, I have so many of my friends that aren't married and those are people that can pour into my life, my marriage, and I welcome that. There's so many different pieces, but I think that's another thing that needs to be challenged is especially because those numbers look different today than maybe they did before of maybe there really isn't a timeline, maybe that's just American culture, American church, making it that. But I'm like, I look at the Bible and I don't necessarily see this at this time you need to get the,
Yeah.
whatever and
There's
blah blah
not
blah, house, kids, everything. Um so you mentioned having like angry conversation convert wow, I'm like struggling with words today. Conversations. You
you're
mentioned having
words words are hard.
angry conversation words are hard. Uh Angry conversations with the Lord. What have those conversations looked like?
Well, they've changed over the years, I think, of the deeper I go with the Lord, the more mature I get in my faith. Like, you have to understand, we don't just come to the Lord when everything's great and saying, "Thank
Yeah.
you, Jesus, for this. Thank you for that." Yes, we want to come to Him in thanksgiving, but He also knows that we're human beings and we
Yeah.
have emotions, and we should be going to him with all of it,
Absolutely.
And I had to come to a place of, like, understanding that the Lord's okay with my disappointment. He's okay with my frustration. He's okay with my anger
Good.
because, they have biblical stories of Jesus flipping tables and showing that he showed emotion and he cried and,
Yeah.
like, I'm also human. Like,
Yeah.
let me if
Feel.
I'm gonna be this broken, vulnerable person, who better to come to than the Lord?
Yeah.
You know? So there have been days I remember during COVID, like, we were, stay-at-home order, and I remember just one day having a breakdown. Like, I was having a
Wow.
mental and emotional
Yeah.
breakdown because I was, still single, living alone. You're in a stay-at-home order. You're literally by yourself all the time. And I was just having a moment with Jesus where I was on my living room floor just crying to him because I
Yeah.
was just like, "What do I need to do? What
Yeah.
who do I need to be? Where do I need to go? Like, what kind of situations do I need to put myself in order for this to happen?" Because,
Wow.
I'm trying to live my best life over here. I am obeying you. I'm, making hard choices to not do certain things because I want to uphold a lifestyle that would please him. Like, all these things I was going off. And he was okay with that the whole
Yeah.
time. There's
Yeah.
been, there are seasons of loneliness
Yeah.
where I'll be in my car on the way home from work and I'm just like, God, this sucks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can just say it,
Yeah.
and we can be honest with their deep, dark stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, just bring it to me.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like when I'm like that and I bring it to him, that's when I am relieved.
Yeah.
Like, I can finally it's like a pressure knob. You just let it out and it
Yeah.
releases tension.
Oh, it's so real.
So being able
Love that.
to, when we say Jesus is our best friend, we complain to our best friend.
Yeah.
My best friend Corey, she hears stuff from me that no one else does except for Jesus. And it's like, you choose to love me anyway.
Yeah.
And, Jesus is the same way.
Yeah.
He longs for us to bring our good, our bad, our ugly, our beautiful, and
Everything. Yeah.
trust him with it. And
Yeah.
I think there's so much about us that we kind of just have to get over, where it's like, I need to get over myself that I
Right.
don't have to deal with this by myself.
Yeah.
God has, I went through a couple of seasons where the Lord was like, are you God or am I? Because if you're it, then why do you need me? But if I'm it, why don't you trust me with all your stuff?
Wow.
Because you're trying to deal with it on your own, and it's not
Good.
working.
Yeah. You're like,
So,
hate to break it to you. No, I think that's so, so good. I love the picture of you on your living room floor crying because I feel like that's been the
that was a hot one.
position where the most like breakthrough, purposeful, just pivotal moments have happened is a position and posture of like absolute humility of you can't get much lower than laying on your living room floor.
Just in
you know?
tears.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think yeah, I don't know why it takes us sometimes such a long time to get to that point. And it's
Mhm.
not like you're supposed to fall apart every single day, but at the same time, like, be honest, be gut real honest with the Lord. Like, He knows it, but He desires to hear it from us. And there's something
Yeah.
that happens in us when we let that out to that trusted source, our creator. Like he knows us. Like he
Yeah.
knows exactly what's going on. So
You don't need to
why
paint
wouldn't
this
we?
perfect picture for him. He's
Yeah.
like he's like, "I
You're
know."
not fooling no one.
He's like, "You think that's okay,
Yeah.
I believe in that."
So good. So, what encouragement would you give to someone who doesn't fit the typical Christian timeline, especially when it feels like everyone else is hitting those milestones?
Yeah, you have to kinda get out of that mindset of comparison of, like, "Well, my life doesn't look like theirs."
Yeah.
It's not supposed to,
Yeah.
like, it's just you have to remove yourself from that unrealistic expectation of that my life's gonna look exactly like someone else's or be perfect just like that. We only see highlight reels. We don't get to see all the nitty-gritty they've gone through. But also just knowing, okay, my life looks different because my testimony is going to be different.
Right.
There are parts of the struggle that I'm going through that are going to be needed for someone else down the road. I have to, for myself, like, I really have to lean into that. Like, you're not meant to be like other people.
Yeah.
You're meant to be you. And sometimes that means what the world thinks is the right thing, or even just the church, like church culture, um, is not what your life's gonna look like.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna embrace what my life looks like right now because this is what I'm in. I can't force it to be something else right now, you know?
Right.
Um, so just embracing, and it's so cliche, you know, and it's so much easier to say than do. But like embrace the season that you're in
Yeah.
because the thing that you're experiencing now, the things that you're learning about yourself, even the struggles that you're going through,
Right.
they're shaping a version of you
Yeah. So good.
that you need for the future, but also someone else needs to know, like, oh, she made it through. I can do it too.
Right. That's so good. That was, like, honestly one of the biggest things with Cherish, like, the Lord was always teaching me about, like, through this ministry was before I even knew it was going to be a ministry, it was just something the Lord was ministering to me, was cherishing the season that I was in because I was always wanting to be in another season, you know, or anything from the life in front of me, and I think the hardest part was when I thought in college, like, I found the guy I'm gonna marry, like, I waited, he's waited, we both love the Lord, like, this is perfect. And then after 2 years, like, it didn't work, you know, the relationship ends, and now I'm feeling called to Washington State. I leave all of my community in Texas. I'm heartbroken, never been through that before, worst pain of my entire life, which felt so silly then because it was like, it's just a breakup, but it's grieving, like, it's grieving what you thought was going to be, and I didn't realize, like, how much of my worth and identity I'd wrapped up into not just this individual, but the idea of what that was gonna represent in my life, and so when the Lord took it all away, like, I was devastated. I'm like, "I have no one." Like, again, that vision of, like, crying on the floor, he's like, Okay, this is good, come to me as you are, but now we gotta get going because you're not seeing the
At
bigger
this pace,
picture."
let's go.
Yes, and I
We
think
have
there
work
was
to do.
literally, and there was this book I read, and it was called I Don't Wait Anymore, and it was just this girl and her journey of just and her life was an adventure, like, it felt so purposeful, and I just started implementing things that she was doing. I was like, "I live literally in the most beautiful state on the West Side, there's hiking trails everywhere, the coffee is 10 out of 10 amazing, like, everything's beautiful, like, I need to explore this place, like, one day I'm gonna have kids, one day I'm gonna get married, and I wanna tell about the adventures I had on my own, like, I didn't wait, and I think because of that, it just activated, like, "Oh, like, what's my voice? What's my purpose?" I became a pastor before I was ever married, I had all these adventures before I was ever married, and I just love that part of my story of just, yeah, embracing the singleness, and harder because I'm like, I ended up getting married at 26, so it doesn't feel like I had to wait as long as other people. But that time frame of like 3 years of nothing was so pivotal for me and absolutely changed my view of I didn't realize like how much codependency I had in my life. Like I wouldn't go anywhere if I didn't have a friend or someone coming with me. Well, now it's like you don't really have friends yet, April. So you kind of have to go to places by yourself. And I'm going to teach you how to do it with joy and excitement and just it was kind of fun to wake up not knowing like what the day was going to bring or where it could go and knowing, man, I could take it wherever I wanted it to, you know, like if I want to go sit in the back of my car in front of like this beautiful like body of water and have my like devotional time, no one's going to stop me. Like I could just do that. So there's definitely wins in it, but yeah, those challenges parts, you know, that's where the enemy's like, nah, like hate this season. It's terrible and just
Yeah,
don't
just
even see the
learning who
good.
you are.
Yes.
I think, like you said, like you learned, oh, I didn't realize how much codependency I had. Like, there are different things that I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that that was a problem
Yeah.
until right now.
Yeah.
And so the seasons that we're in, you know, also think about it like the season we're in right now is a season that we asked the Lord for.
Yeah.
At some point, we were like, oh, I can't wait for that.
Wow.
And we're in it. And now we're like, well, but I want that. So it's like that humanness of never being satisfied, but also realizing like, I used to beg the Lord for this season.
Wow.
And now I'm living it, and I'm
still not
a little brat about it. You know? But I'm also learning about myself. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
I am super independent. I love being able to go do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I also love being at home.
Yeah.
I love reading. I like to work out. Like, there are things that I've learned about myself that if I had gotten married. Did you hear that car go by?
No, what car?
That if I had gotten married when I was right out of college, I would never have known these things about myself.
No, it's so real.
So as much as like there's a struggle in every season that we're in, like we have to take the time to sit and be like, but what am I thankful for that actually happened in this season? Because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be who I am.
So good.
And I love who I am.
And I think it's like so important because like I can speak from it now in the place of being married. There still can be that like codependency that will sneak up of like, Andrew, what are you doing today? And he has like all the, like my husband's like so active, like at the gym all the time, playing pickleball, basketball, like loves to be out and doing things. And so I can easily kind of revert back into myself of just sitting on a couch doing nothing. It's like, well, April, explore like you guys can be interdependent, like what things do you like to do outside of like I can become a workaholic if I'm not careful, like what things bring you rest? Like still like even in marriage, you have to know who you are and show up because if I'm just waiting to be who I am because Andrew's championing me and boosting me up, like yes, we want that, but also I need to do that for myself. Like he's not my source. Like it's the basic, like, he doesn't complete me, but he complements me. But I have to show up for our marriage and knowing, like, who I am and finding my security and confidence in the Lord, not in Andrew, like, be with me 24/7. Like, that's not good. That's not healthy,
Like,
And so it's funny. The seasons really do complement each other, and there's intentional things that you're to learn and carry. And that's where it's like, I need my single friends in life in the sense of like reminding me to be me and not just waiting on my husband and being who I am because he's right there, like reminding myself to be that independent. Now there's some differences of like, yeah, I can't just like, okay, I'm going on a girls trip, see you whenever, or text you whenever, like there's differences, but like you find the right people that they know that and they're going to remind you of that too. But I think that's where if we're not careful, we can even get isolated and alone in marriage. And we need community. We need people. I need to remember like, oh yeah, like it's my day off. Like, what do I want to do? And it's okay if we do, like, yes, it's important that we come together, but it's okay if we like spend a day and we do our own things and come together at night. And then it's so fun because it's like, man, let me share about my day and you share about your day, just like you would a friend. So I think there's so many pieces to take and run with on that. So kind of transitioning a little bit, you said you like to work out, which I'm really excited where we're going in our conversation is you said, she's like, oh gosh, you work out a lot, but you don't always feel like you look like it. And that tension between effort and perception is 1,000% real. How do you process that disconnect?
Dude.
I know, what a question.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard. I mean, I went and worked out this morning and, there are times where I'm getting ready for the gym and I'm like, yeah, I can see my muscles sometimes. But then there are other times where I was like, why? Why do I work so hard to not be able to see?
Right.
I mean, let's be honest, like I have body dysmorphia so bad. And I think most women have a level of it where it's like what you see in the mirror is not real.
Yeah.
But I mean, I used to be over 250 pounds. And so it's hard for me to not see myself as that girl.
Yeah.
Because I was her for so long. And so now I'm not. I've lost quite a bit of weight and I have done a lot of hard work and I've attained goals. There are things that I've struggled with, but, I have to, even when I'm in the gym, I have to be like, no, you're strong. And as much as you may not see physically, what you think you should be seeing, you're in here, you're working out, you're putting in the work, you are working to become healthier, you're eating right, you're consciously making those decisions, and you have to just trust that you're doing these things and they're benefiting you. Like, I have to remind myself, like, hey, you're not on any medication anymore. I was 26 years old and on 6 different medications at one point.
Wow.
And I'm not on any of those things anymore. And that's a win. Like,
Absolutely.
I have to remind myself, like, hey, you may not see what you want in the mirror, but your inner workings are way healthier than they used to be. And, I can just look at how much weight I'm moving in the gym and be like, hey, you're doing it.
Right.
You're okay.
That's good. And it is so hard because there's so many different mixed messages out there right now when it comes to beauty and weight and body image and everything. And so knowing that every body type is different, like we can't all be the same, but also not using that as an excuse of like, it's my body, I can do what I want and, show up in that way. It's like really how I've aligned it. And I know we've talked about this too, is just like, okay, the body is a temple of the Lord. Like, I want to honor it and I want to be healthy with it, and bringing that into the equation with the Lord of, hey, I want to be doing your work for a long time, Lord. Like, help me to, again, fuel my body for the sense of I need energy. Like, I don't want to wake up feeling tired. I don't want to have brain fog. Like, I want to be able to be focused. I want to show up and give 110%. And then it's having an honest conversation of like, like, how am I fueling my body? How often am I fueling it? Am I getting proper exercise? Like the whole list. And so it's not a one size fits all. Like, everyone's going to have a different way of getting there, but it only comes down to like being honest with yourself. Like, how do you feel? What do you want? And I think just those principles of just the day, like, I'm going to the gym, like that's a non-negotiable, and it's
just getting there is a win.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, you don't have to compare like your workouts of like, sometimes I get like that too. I'm like on the gym, I'm on the treadmill. I'm like looking at the person next to me, like, oh, I need to be running too. And it's like, no, like, you do what's good for your body that's pushing and challenging you, and you build that over time, and you can't, I think with goals too, with our bodies, like, we try to do all things at once. And I know if I put like so many goals on myself, I'm going to fail immediately. And then I'm like, yep, exactly. I'm like, okay, small goals, and you hear like it's what's in the kitchen, like that's what matters, and then the exercise part, it's just everything. I think my encouragement to people too through all of that is just have the honest conversation with yourself. It's your journey, no one else's, unless you invite people into that with you as accountability. But you've got to get before the Lord of like, what are you desire to see? What's the motive behind it? Like, because if the motive is unhealthy, of I'll be more liked if I'm this size, or I'll like the way I look if I can fit into these pairs. Probably not the right motivation.
Yeah.
And
even
not healthy.
Looking at a scale.
Yes.
Because I so long saw the number on the scale as the success indicator. And now I'm like, you know what? The success is, I feel good in my clothes today. Or my inches, I take measurements every once in a while. My inches are going down. Like, but also like I'm sleeping better.
Right.
My digestion is better. Like, the little things like that, like, we just becoming more aware of our bodies is a win.
Yeah.
To change what culture has made the top thing.
Right.
Because beauty standards are confusing. Like, I talked about that on the panel, was like, what I might see as beauty may be completely different to you. And the next person, or the next culture, or the next country, like, the way we view beauty changes.
Absolutely.
from one person to the next. And so if we're trying to uphold our version of beauty, but it doesn't align with the next person, are we wrong? You know, asking that question.
Yeah.
But also knowing like our bodies are different.
Yeah.
You know, I work out with one of my good friends and her body shape is completely different than mine. Her body composition is completely different than mine. She's 5 inches taller than me. And, you know, like, so the way we navigate how our bodies are fluctuating is different. And I can't say, you know, what she's doing is going to work for me and vice versa. And so just
I feel like too,
no.
yeah, I'm hanging out with girls that are younger than me, and for whatever reason, at age 30, when your metabolism is shot, like, no one told me, no one told me. So it's so much harder, and so sometimes that feels, like, really discouraging of, like, I can be doing all the right things and yet not seeing those results that you want, and so that's
It's
where
like this weird formula that you have to figure out, but then once you figure it out, it changes.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, "Awesome. Awesome. I could do this before and now I can't," you know?
Yeah, but also
So
when I was younger, you know, I've always had issues with my weight my whole life.
yeah.
You know, my whole family tends to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And so I had grown up with the mentality of like, well, this is just what I'm going to look like, whatever. And so when I actually started to try,
Mm.
you know, you run into roadblocks because your metabolism is different than the next
Yeah.
person's.
Right.
And so something that might work for you, like, you know, if you cut out soda, you'll lose like 15 pounds. Well, I cut out soda, nothing. Like,
Right.
so it's like learning to know we are individual people.
Yeah.
God has made our whole being
Yeah.
individualized, but we are, you know, we're called to be a community of people and community of believers, but we are individual people.
Yeah.
And that goes down to the smallest of details, you know? And that could be of like, well, this is just how that my body functions different
Right.
than
Right.
yours.
Right.
And, you know, my eyes look like this and your eyes look like that. Like,
Yeah.
and then our personalities change. And so learning to become comfortable with the fact that like I'm who I am and I'm who God has made me to be and
Absolutely.
trying to figure out like, okay, this is what works for me. It may not work for them. And, you know, the fitness industry is hard because they'll be like, well, you shouldn't eat carbs or you shouldn't do this. And it's like, well, I know for myself, if I do that diet, it's not going to work.
Right.
Or the
Right.
function that, you know, so
No.
kind of, you have to do some deep work.
Trial. Yeah, and it's so real because it's like in every aspect, like thinking of ourselves as like a holistic person and bringing that before the Lord of like, okay, again, he's our creator. He knows what's going to work for your body and what's not. So it's again, like, why don't I invite him in to like help me to understand, you know? And part of it's like, it's all connected, you know? It's like, what's going on in your thoughts when you make a decision about food, you know, like food noise, you know, like how do I silence that and fill it with something different? You know, like there's so many questions that you have to sit yourself in, and it's hard work, you know. The things that I think bring the most benefit to your life like are the ones that you have to actually put in effort with, and our culture is very much about like instantaneous changes and quick results. And
We're the microwave generation for a reason.
yeah, yeah, so it's hard but totally worth exploring and figuring out. And kind of you can look at it as like it's a fun adventure to figure out. And how, like, I think about, like, getting into the word, it's like you can be reliant on your pastor or the church that you attend to feed you spiritually, but when you get into a mature relationship and you realize, "Wow, I can feed myself," and when you read something that you've grown up hearing, but it becomes, like, revolutionary for you, or it's, like, this huge revelation of, like, wow, like, it just makes it that much more exciting. And I think the same thing happens when you figure out, like, oh my gosh, like I'm seeing the results because I've put in the work and the effort and I'm learning about myself. And I think that's like the beauty in all of it is discovering yourself at the same time that you are inviting the Lord in, being disciplined in certain things. And so it's a journey, but it's a good one.
And I know
Uh,
that some people are scared to get to know themselves,
yeah. Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
more the more I've started to do it, the more exciting I find it to learn about myself. Like, I love taking all of those, like, different personality tests and doing all these different things. I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I can breathe because this is explaining to me, like, oh,
helping me
that's why
understand
I do
myself.
that," or that's why I make decisions this way, or how I talk to people or work with teams. Learning about yourself it's terrifying and
Huge.
sometimes painful, but when you come through it, it's so good. It's so good.
Absolutely.
You
Well,
change for the better because of it.
it's amazing. So, what would you say to the girl listening who feels overlooked because of her singleness, maybe her body, or just not fitting kind of like the Christian mold of like, man, I'm not in these categories. I don't even know where I fit in the church. I don't maybe look like the typical Christian girl. What would you say to that individual listening?
Yeah, for myself, I needed to hear the encouragement of, like, sometimes you are going to have to make it happen yourself,
Mm,
you know?
yeah,
I think
I get
for
such the
myself, like,
sniffles. I'm so sorry.
girl, I've been itching my eyeballs, like,
Oh
we're
my,
just
spring is here, baby. Spring is here.
Um,
Okay, we're
yeah, but
good.
just knowing, like, okay, I have to figure out what do I want? Ask
Mm,
that question. Okay, so if I don't feel like I fit in the church, what do I need to do to feel like I do?
yeah.
Not always throw this pity party of like, well, the church doesn't want me. Well,
Mm,
someone in the church does.
yeah.
So find them.
Yeah.
It might take you some time, but if you're putting in the work and the effort
Yeah.
to try, you have to try, you
Right.
know? Um, you know, you eventually will find your people, you'll find the place that you're meant to serve. You'll find the community that you're meant to be a part of. I always say jokingly, like, I don't fit that Christian girl mold, like
Mm,
you can see, like, I have tattoos, I have face piercings, like,
yeah.
I made that choice after I got saved. Like, it's not
Yeah.
something, I have some friends that are like, well, did you get that before you fell in love with Jesus? I'm like, no,
Actually, after. Thank
no,
you.
after. And I honestly feel more myself because I have these things. It's a way
Yeah.
of expressing who I am. But I also had to find the people that this doesn't offend.
Mm,
Because, it you would think that we'd be over it by now, but, we're not.
still
The
exists.
world is not over it.
Yeah.
The world is over it, but the
Yeah.
Christian world is not.
Yeah.
So you have to find those people that, like, this I look this way. Am I gonna be okay for you? And if not, that's okay. I'm gonna find
Yeah.
someone else.
Yeah.
And know that, like, I'm gonna be able to minister to people, different types of people, based on how I
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
than someone who may not have these things.
So good.
So leaning into, this is who I am, and I don't necessarily like, there are things obviously everybody has to work on and change about themselves. But there are parts of us that this is who God has made me. He's made
Right.
me a creative, and this is how I express myself. Um, how I speak is how I express myself. I know that I'm called to be honest in search situations that are uncomfortable, and
Right.
God has made me that way.
Yeah.
Um, so how do I, even in the midst of feeling like, okay, this isn't welcome or this isn't accepted, or these people may want me to dim who I am down a little bit.
Yeah.
How do I remain who God has called me to be
Yeah.
while still fitting in this tension of,
Mm,
I'm not going to fit in with everyone.
yeah.
And, not everyone's going to love me.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but how do I put in the effort, my best foot forward to
Yeah.
fit in places where it doesn't always seem like I fit?
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes because, the Lord tells us like to be set apart and we're in the world, not of the world. All these pieces that just talks about like belonging rather than fitting in. But when you're in a day to day, like that can also scream a lot of loneliness and cause questions of, am I viewing this wrong? Is something different about me? Should I be changing? And so I think it's so good just how you're reminding us of, man, like I'm gonna be who God has called me to be. And you're not called to be best friends with everyone. Not everyone's going to line up with you, but we find a way to agree to disagree in moments and realizing that like those aren't like deal breaker situations, like we can have different viewpoints, different philosophies, and that's okay. I
Yeah.
think is
I
good.
always try to tell people, like, don't apologize for the space that you take,
Mm,
and be unapologetically who you are.
that's good.
I mean, I know I'm a little bit, my personality, I'm a very bold person, very blunt, very direct. So I live that way of like, I'm unapologetically me, and if you don't like it, then
Yeah.
okay. But I mean, there's been seasons of my life where I would silence myself because I thought the words that I had to say weren't right. And then the Lord would be like, no, like you are meant to be, that person that
Yeah.
brings that word. It may be uncomfortable for people to hear, but you are meant to say it.
Yeah.
And don't apologize for taking up space in this world that God has made you to take.
It's good. I like that. Kristey, this was such a good episode. Look at you, just giving us all the wisdom, insight. I mean, so many different pieces that you were able to speak to. And I know that there's so many women of different ages listening to this that can resonate, that may cause like reflection of, man, how am I showing up on a day to day, even with people that maybe don't map up in the same stage of life or, viewpoints or wherever they're at and struggling. So just thank you for your vulnerability, for being authentic, for being unapologetically yourself for the Lord, taking up that space. Take it up, baby. It's so good. And girls, if you like this episode, make sure to share it on your socials. Make sure you're liked and subscribed. And remember, you cannot just listen to this, but now you can watch on YouTube. So make sure that you're like and subscribed over there. But we love you all, and we cannot wait to be back with you in just a few weeks.